Duke Roufus, all the way in Milwaukee. How are you, my friend? Delighted to speak to you again. Always a pleasure.
Honoured to be your first guest. This is awesome. Hello to everyone in Ireland.
We're good. I think everyone's a little bit excited after the ongoings last night. Obviously, the UFC 229 press conference, and a couple of your guys obviously involved on that card, the two Petesy brothers. First of all, I just want to get your thoughts on the press conference last night between Conor and Khabib. Obviously, you have a big interest in it as well with Anthony fighting Tony Ferguson. What were your thoughts on it last night?
It was entertaining as usual, you know. I mean, Conor was Conor and Khabib was Khabib, you know. It's going to be a great fight. It's who gets their style of fighting going. You know, we all know that Conor can drop anyone with that left hand or his right hand, and, you know, Khabib, he's a human bear if he gets on top of you and mauls you. So it's going to be a classic wrestler versus striker.
We'll get back to that, and I'm going to get your prediction, obviously, at the end of the interview here. But for Anthony getting back in there and Sergio, the interesting thing for me was seeing them both announced on the same card, and I think it's something that Anthony said before, that he didn't want to fight on the same card as Sergio. What was the thought process in the selection and having them back on the same card together?
I just think the one time it happened before, it was a little bit of bad luck, bad situation. You know, but I got to tell you, this time around, they've really motivated each other, a special energy that is just amazing for this camp. It's a special effort going into this fight. You know, not everyone gets to get the 9 lives like Anthony Pettis. I mean, here, you know, he was on the downswing a year ago. Now he's back on the upswing. He has a great performance at International Fight Week, and now he's fighting the number 2 contender in the world, former interim champion Tony Ferguson. And I got to tell you, this kid is prepared. I'm so proud of him. He's really worked his tail off to get back to form, and he's added on to where he once was. It's special. You know, he's still a very young man. He's only 31. I was there when Anderson Silva fought Chris Lieben in his UFC debut at 31, and we call Anderson the GOAT. So, you know, if that's the case, you know, it's exciting, you know, to be able to, you know, get this type of momentum back. You know, and I got to tell you, it's not my prediction, but my hope is, no disrespect, I mean, Conor McGregor is the fight that we all want to have. Fight if you're a fighter, because he's the big gate, the big attraction, you know, the big fight. You know, I'm hoping that, you know, Anthony does his business, Conor does his business, and that would be a really sexy, tasty fight for the fans. You know, I mean, it would be an epic fight for fight fans worldwide. Definitely.
I want to get your thoughts on, obviously, the process of Anthony getting this fight. What was it, the fact maybe, you know, he stepped up for that Al Iaquinta fight. Sorry, not Al Iaquinta, you know, to fight Khabib. He was, you know, in the running to take that fight. Was it the UFC sort of willingness and respect for Anthony? You know, he's a former champion. He had no qualms about stepping up to take that fight. Have they maybe rewarded him with a shot against probably the number 1 contender in Tony Ferguson?
Well, originally, the fight that was going to be made was Al Iaquinta and Anthony as the main event at UFC Milwaukee.
Okay.
But, you know, Dana reached out to Anthony. Anthony met out at the UFC offices with him, and we got the heads up, hey, let's be ready possibly for October 6th. So, you know, Anthony's always been a company guy. You know, he fights whoever they put in front of him, win, lose, or draw. And especially the toughest of characters in that division. So I think they're just have an insurance plan just in case Khabib doesn't make weight.
Yes.
Conor's never had an issue with it, respectfully. And, you know, Khabib, that's a lot of weight for him to cut. So I think they got Tony lurking in the secondary, and Anthony is the double backup plan. That being said, if everything goes right, we're going to have 2 great lightweight fights. That's going to be a big part of the next stage of the lightweight division.
Do you think then, you know, ahead of Poirier Diaz, do you think this is the genuine number 1 contenders fight? The winner of this will be granted a shot at either Khabib or Conor?
Yeah, I do, just because it's going to happen on the same night. And if my man shows up and does what he used to do and just did in his last fight, there is going to be a note for it, because we're in a new stage of the UFC. It's not about the rankings, even though Tony's number 2. It's about who can sell pay-per-view. You know, if you want to be a pay-per-view seller, you got to, you know, Conor's proven that time and time again. It's good to have him back, good to have all his problems that he went through earlier this year behind him. Glad that he looks quite motivated and ready to go. But at the end of the day, it's about selling fights. You know, that's why Mayweather's talking about fighting Pacquiao. You know, our sport's unlike any other sport. You know, we don't follow a schedule, a season, or rankings. We sell big fights to people, and that's what pay-per-view is. And, you know, your goal is to build a pay-per-view type champion or draw, and that's what we're seeing, you know, with Anthony Pettis' rebound. You know, we got a tough test ahead of us. I mean, Tony Ferguson's a beast. His numbers speak very, you know, great for his success. But honestly, Khabib said it, and I'll say it, that stylistically, Anthony matches up very well with Tony.
Yeah, you know, I look at this fight and I think both guys, you know, they're attacking-minded fighters. Something's got to give in this fight. I can't see this fight potentially going the distance. Just the styles of both guys and in the way they fight. You know, Anthony's very good off his back. You know, he's very good on his feet, as we know, those kicks. Tony Ferguson, you know, goes forward on the front foot, looks for very unorthodox, and we know how good he is also on the ground. There's a finish in here, I feel, Duke. Anyway, how do you feel about how the fight's actually going to pan out as a contest? Do you expect a finish?
Yes, I do, big time. First things, Anthony said the key thing to me 2 days ago. Yesterday. We were talking about the fight. He goes, you know, I said the rubber guard this, a few other situations. He goes, this is going to be fun. I look forward to getting down there with him. And I'm just like, holy man, this guy's ready. I mean, you know, you don't say Tony Ferguson in fun usually. Yeah. Most fighters don't say that. And, you know, his mindset coming into this is special. That being said, there's some things that Anthony does that's very underrated. I see Tony's trying to box a lot. Anthony that's why we were at the boxing gym last night. One of my longtime guys I train in boxing, Coach Mercedes, we were over at the gym training with high-level guys. One of the guys Anthony's actually trained with before, Robert Brandt, is getting ready to fight for a middleweight world title. Luis Arias is one of Anthony's childhood friends, fought for the world title. And he trains with Jorge Linares, too. So Anthony's no slouch. You know, what set up the win against Chiesa was the counter right hand.
Is that, we spoke about that before, Duke, you know, him training with Jorge Linares. Has that been a crucial part, do you see, in this fight? You know, bringing in that, you know, boxing element and keeping it very, very technical in terms of boxing?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize, you know, I'm 2-0 as a pro boxer. I grew up boxing in a gym where my amateur coach is one of the Olympic coaches for the USA. My older brother's managed by Ray Leonard, and he boxed out of Kronk. So boxing has been a huge part of my life. And then when I trained in Thailand, I was able to hook up with a really good Cuban boxing coach. And my coach from Thailand in Muay Thai was on the national and Olympic team. Not only was a 4-time Muay Thai champ, he was a national boxing champ. So boxing's always been a huge part of the Roufus family formula and the way we train fighters. So it's just very, you know, you watch Sergio, he's methodical with his hands in there. He's, you know, he's the Lomachenko of the UFC, if you ask me. He can methodically outbox many fighters in the UFC.
Is it about finding consistency for Anthony going forward? And, you know, obviously he's been, you know, lost, win. This win puts him in a really good position. Is it about getting that back-to-back wins?
Oh, man, I just talked about this yesterday with Coach Cushman, that, you know, when Anthony is injury-free and things are going his way, he's something special, and that's what we've seen. You know, people forget the first injury that almost ended his career was that patella on his knee. You know, Benson Henderson kicked his knee in that fight, and that was a hard one to come back, and he came back and beat Gilbert Melendez. Then the next one was the elbow surgery from a mishap in wrestling, not to mention the shoulder surgery before he won the championship after he won the WC title. So he's gone through some horrific injuries that I believe really affected his confidence. And now that he's feeling great and he's got, the kids will say swag, he's got his mojo back. He's feeling quite great. And I mean, I see some incredible performances. Last camp, when him, Paul Felder, Jared Gordon were getting together, training, I wish I could share to the world some of the magic that happened in the sparring. Not just from Anthony, though. It takes two to make a great dance. I mean, Paul, Jared, some of the other guys in the gym really help him push Anthony. That's the thing. You got to have the right people in there training with you. And we found some good people that, are really helping him. But I also believe high tides raises all ships. We don't have a big team, but I want to float every one of their battleships high. Definitely.
Moving on, Duke, that's a fight I can't wait for UFC 229. It's an absolute barn burner, as we like to say here. But, we spoke in Brooklyn, after the incident with Conor McGregor, and obviously a number of your fighters, Anthony, Paul Felder, had fights fall out in that card. You said Conor McGregor was a flash in the pan. You weren't happy at the time. I don't think anyone was that was there on the ground. What are your thoughts now on Conor? Maybe he's sort of rebuilt himself over the last couple of months. What's your general feeling towards Conor McGregor?
Well, what I meant about being a flash in the pan, that style of bravado and marketing, I mean, once you're the real deal, you don't need that anymore. And let's face it, he's the real deal. But, I think that he was, cheeky yesterday at the press conference, but that's who he is. That's who Conor would be if we were having a few pints with him in the pub. That's just who he is. But at the same time, he's not been in the media much. He's not. He seems very focused, and I think he's great for the sport. He's great for Ireland. He's great for Irish people. He's great for fight fans everywhere. I wish the guy nothing but the best. Do we want to fight him and face him? Of course, because to be the best, you want to beat the best. That being said, I mean, he's good for our sport, and I'm glad that he did a new deal with the UFC. I'm glad that he's back because, again, high tide raises all ships. I'm not one of these people that I hate on other camps or fighters, and, all props to a guy who's doing it big. I want Conor McGregor back. He brings more people that normally don't watch UFC, MMA, our sport. The spotlight he brings is wonderful, and what he's done for the country of Ireland. I just shared a picture on Instagram. I was at the first UFC in 2009.
They closed down your Instagram account. Why?
I've shared too many. I've shared too many licensed videos.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to promote my fighters with UFC videos, and it looks like I got clips. So you can follow me at CoachDukeRoufus.com, or excuse me, at Instagram. So it is what it is. No problem. I understand. I just thought I was doing right by promoting my fighters and the sport, and I guess with all this new streaming stuff, they're really shutting down on the content out there. I understand it, and so we'll build it back up. I'll keep sharing fun stuff. That being said, I was talking about the first Ireland UFC. There's only one Irish fighter on there. And for me, someone who was at the For someone who was at the first UFC Ireland to see the growth in Ireland, it's amazing. And I mean, even the what I'm really into right now is the amateur side of MMA, to the point I'm working on the teenage and youth MMA with the no head strikes, we call pancreation in the USA. But I'm a big believer in the IMMAF, and I know that the Irish have a strong team every year at the World Championships. Actually, one of my boys who won the championship, I believe in 2015, Brendan Allen fights for the LFA middleweight title tonight. I believe in that system. It makes great fighters. Shorty Torres came from that. It was a tough flyweight in the UFC. So I really just, again, what happened in Ireland is incredible, just from amateur to professional, and even bigger names coming. It's only the beginning over there.
Definitely. The fight itself, and you being obviously a decorated striker and a striking coach, you've some of the best guys in the world there. What way do you see this fight going? Do you see Conor getting the better of Habib with his unbelievable striking, or do you see Habib potentially landing a takedown and you know, getting this to the deck and mauling Conor? How do you see it panning out?
You know, I mean, Khabib is really strong, but who's he like dusted off in the first 1 or 2 rounds of a fight? You know, the one thing, I think this fight is going to look a lot like a lot of Pettis fights, where Pettis weathers the storm first round, second round, third round. He finds a way to finish fighters. Conor and him are very much alike in that way. I always tell people 9 out of 10 fighters would have given up in the Dos Anjos loss. You know, Conor is not going to give up in there in that heat, and he's got that special tenacity that, you know, unless Khabib knocks him out with one blow, a lot like Darren Till last a few weeks ago. That's how I felt with Till. That's why we worked so much on chokes, because we knew Till wasn't going out. You know, the boy's tough. And Conor reminds me that the only way you're going to get him, you better latch his neck. Or he'll even let you break his arm, I think. He's that type of individual. That being said, you know, I do believe that Conor might weather the storm and catch him. But one thing Conor knows...
But for you, Duke, you know, is his striking as good as people say it is? Do you think he's one of the best strikers in mixed martial arts looking on at Conor?
Well, I think his striking's really good for what he does, and it works phenomenal. I mean... do
you think he could do more?
He doesn't need to against the opponents he's fighting. Meaning, why would he kick against Khabib? Khabib will take him down if he kicks. But, you know, when you got a left hand like he does, you know, that's something to count on. You know, I mean, here's the thing that Conor and the team know. They know Khabib has to come to him. So that's what he works on very well, counter-punching. And I love the way he fights. I use a lot of the same tactics before, and, you know, he's very similar in a lot of the things we do and the way we think. I love the way that he counter-punches, and that's the thing. You saw Chad Mendes thought he was going to wrestle with Conor like that. You've seen, you know, other people who thought they would maul Conor, and actually when you try and maul him, you play into Conor's game like Jose Aldo did. Yeah. Conor is really good when you step to him. The reason why Diaz gave him trouble, Diaz had the patience and he wasn't focused on wrestling Conor where he could stay outside. That's something that Anthony Pettis would do against Conor if we get to that juncture of fighting. That being said, could Khabib win? Yes, of course. I think he's a beast too. I mean, is he personally driven about some of the Dagestani comments and, you know, the lack of respect he feels from his own government with Putin? And, you know, it's gotten pretty heated. That being said, you know, we've seen some guys who are pretty heated get in the octagon with Conor, and instead of drinking whiskey, that guy drinks ice water before fights because he's ice cold in his veins against some killers. I mean, you know, I just think it's an interesting matchup. The type of guy, and I love Khabib. He's so respectful and cool to me. I think he can win, but I just think that McGregor, he has the ability to catch you coming in. It's something special. He reminds me of a more refined Mickey the Pikey, you know. It's just, you know, just when you don't think this kid's, yeah, right, you know, and boom, the guy drops. It's just, you know, it's going to be a great fight. I'm so excited to be there. Yeah.
It's going to be incredible. UFC 229 lineup really nicely. Just a couple more if you do. I do appreciate the time. Tyron Woodley obviously coming off that fantastic win over Darren Till a couple of weeks ago. One of your guys, obviously, as we know. You know, a fantastic performance for me. I think was more or less flawless. Everything looked and seemed to go to plan the way you guys wanted it to go. You mentioned the chokes there a moment ago. That's ultimately what finished the fight. What's next for Tyron? Does it have to be Colby Covington now?
Probably. I mean, you know, what I tell people is this. My job is, I'm kind of like the last person in the line of command on the team. My job isn't to figure out who to fight. My job is, once we figure out who to fight, is how to beat them. You know, I get the last call. With the fight set, and let's beat them. You know, so... Well,
a good one. Are you trying to figure out how to beat Colby Covington now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, similar to the way he just caught Darren Till. I mean, Tyron and Conor are similar. The way Tyron caught Darren Till was very Conor-esque. You know, we worked on that, the zigzag, slipping that jab and zapping that cross through the hole. That's what set up the beginning of the end. There was that knockdown. Colby Covington, if he walks at Tyron, will be in a world of hurt. I mean, we're talking about, he's a great wrestler, great fighter, tenacious on his pressure. I mean, but the thing is, he got touched up and bloodied by Damian Maia. He had a great scrap with Dos Anjos, but sometimes some lefties don't fight well against lefties, and I think an awkward wrestler lefty another lefty trouble. But Tyron, I think this will be our 7th training camp in a row at fighting a left-handed fighter. So
it works in your favor.
Oh, for sure. And one of the blessings I have, my older brother is a left-handed fighter. 2 of the Thai trainers that lived with me for 2 years, are both left-handed. So I understand, though, that's why Anthony looks so good against Chiesa. I understand how to fight left-handed fighters very well because I grew up with that. So Tyron, his comfort level of fighting southpaws is really well. I mean, I would love. I mean, here's the thing. I got nothing against Colby. He's an entertainer. I mean, I don't take any of this stuff these kids say personally. I'm not fighting. I just hold the spit bucket and give a couple of advice. I mean, I got the best seat in the house, and I'm not personally invested in the opponent. I'm only personally invested in the guys I train, so I don't get involved in all that other stuff. That's for the entertainment, the fight hype. Most of these kids, man, they're super cool cats, and I'm friends with a lot of the fighters in the UFC. I mean, Darren Till. I mean, I was a big fan of that kid, and I even said to Darren after the fight, I'm an underground Liverpool fan, so I said if I come over, we gonna hang out.
Don't be telling me that, Duke. I don't want to know that. You know what team I support.
I know. I'm sorry to hear that.
Come on.
But he even invited me to stay at his house, So I might have to make another trip back.
Well, you're always welcome in Dublin, Duke. We always say that to you. We've shared a beer or two together over the years. I want to ask you, Duke, is this fight, I think it's the one everyone sort of wants to see because, there's a whole trash talk element from Colby. Tyron's gone a little bit back and forth as well. There seems to be a lot of investment in this fight from the promotion as well. I feel as though they want to do it. Do you think this is going to happen at UFC 230? Obviously, with Dana White saying John Jones isn't going to headline that fight card now.
The only issue why it won't happen, the first right hand in the first round that Tyron landed on Darren, if you see it, Darren did a great tactical job of duck diving his head. So when Tyron hit him with the right hand, his thumb hit Darren's forehead really hard. And he's got some ligament damage that we're trying to get figured out, and he's gone and gotten the MRI, and right now we're just waiting for the release from a doctor if he can do this or not do this.
When are you going to hear back?
Probably next week. Same thing with Paul Felder. In 2 weeks he gets released, so we were hoping to get him on UFC Milwaukee. That's not going to happen. It's the problem is with MMA, those little gloves, they're so much more exposed on the hands. The possibility of hurting yourself, especially when you do hit like Tyron. So that's the only thing. And Tyron hasn't really even talked about that. Maybe I shouldn't have let the cat out of the bag, but that's something that, Tyron wants to fight as soon as possible if he's healthy. But, at the end of the day, it's tit for tat. Colby wasn't available for this date. And I know Colby's pushing for New York, but respectfully, we might not be ready for that date. I'd love to be in New York in November at the Garden. There's no better place to fight, but you can't do that without a healthy thumb on his right hand. So definitely. That's just the speculation on that. I mean, right after the fight, we thought it was pretty bad. It's getting better, but we'll see. I mean, maybe he could ride shotgun on the John Jones Brock Lesnar fight. Maybe that's our timeline. I can't comment because I'm not head coach Dean Thomas, and it's just that's the knowledge I know. And I know that the one thing I advised as his friend, former fighter, is make sure you fight when you're 100%, because he already did a solid for the UFC. Of course. The timeline that we took the fight, we did it on short notice. They needed a somewhat short notice. They needed a title fight. We stepped up for the company. Tyron was a company guy. Darren was a company guy. Do you want him to do the same thing again? I mean, we're coming up here. How many weeks is it till New York? 6.
6 weeks, yeah, 6 weeks.
It's same thing again, right? So, I mean, here you're talking about a guy who would be put in back-to-back situations where 6 weeks, you know, he already did it. You know, I feel like it's like the draft here in the United States. You can't double jeopardy a guy. You drafted him once, you can't draft him again in 6 weeks. It's like I said, if he's healthy, yeah, I'm all for it.
Definitely.
I mean, but it just all comes down to health.
Yeah. I think it's the fight everyone wants to see next in the welterweight division. And I think, you know, Tyron's up there with the welterweight greats now, you know, maybe 1 or 2 fights more away from me from being, you know, right up there, right at the very top of the list. Fascinating times ahead in the UFC welterweight division as well. Duke Roufus, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Always enjoy speaking with you. Do appreciate the time, my friend. Hope to speak to you soon in Las Vegas, possibly.
Yeah, we'll see you there. I'm going to have my little daughter Lula there too as well. It's her first UFC trip. So the Duchess Lula will be, my little one will be having fun in the whole event. She's going to enjoy it. You know, she knows what Dad does. So she's excited to see the backgrounds of my work, and it's going to be fun. And as well as the Duchess, she's very pleasant. The better half of me, definitely. Much better looking and smarter and all that other stuff, you know. But I look forward to seeing all the Irish fans out in Las Vegas. I can't, you know, I used to say the Canadian fans are the best MMA fans, but honestly, Ireland, the spirit of the people, it's always fun when the Irish fighters, especially obviously Conor, but all the support you give, it's fun. Whether you're fighting against them or fighting with them, it's a blast.
Always a pleasure, my friend. I look forward to seeing you in Las Vegas too. Appreciate the time.
All right. Thanks, my man. See you, brother.